Hi, Vincent Hall, and welcome to another episode of our Vincent Hall Featured Artist Series. Today, you're going to get to meet not one, but two of our amazingly talented artists in the center, both Jack and Lorraine Hannon. Jack and Lorraine joined our program as soon as we started offering the painting and photography classes and have evolved into incredibly gifted artists in their own right. And they're also going to be sharing some of the art talent of their extended family as well. So without further wait, Lorraine and Jack Hannon. Jack and Lorraine, I'd like to thank you so much for agreeing to be a twofer today and show the rest of the Vincent Hall community your varied and extremely gifted artistic skills in both the general art forms of drawing and painting, and also Jack with your exquisite photography. And I think we're even going to get a little glimpse into the family talent as well. But I thought we might start with you, Lorraine.
Yes. Hi, Mel.
Hi.
Just a little background about me. I was born and raised in the beautiful area of the Finger Lakes in New York State on the eastern border. I graduated from Syracuse University and then went out to San Francisco to do a dietetic internship at the University of California University Hospitals. After I had completed that, I wanted to stay in California a while longer. Who didn't back at that time in the 60s it was.
Oh.
So I was offered a position at a community hospital in Berkeley. Then I was also fortunate to be able to share a house with two other girls who were dietitians who had graduated from that internship a year or two before I had. That was a nice arrangement. And even more so, one of them had a friend from home who was in the Navy. He was a carrier pilot, and sometimes he would come to visit Diane when he was in port, and he'd bring a friend. And one time he showed up with Jack.
Oh.
Now this was a short acquaintanceship because they were about to be deployed to Vietnam.
Oh.
But Jack decided he wanted to carry it on, the acquaintanceship, shall we say. So he got the address of our house from his friend. But one of the digits in the street address was wrong, so the letter came back to him on the ship.
Oh, no.
So that was the beginning of interesting things. But he never gives up, as you know. So the second letter got through, and we continued writing. Our whole courtship, so to speak, was with letters, because when he came back from Vietnam, he had decided that although he loved the Navy, he didn't want to make it a career. And he had applied to the University of Virginia Law School and was accepted. So almost immediately he left in this little old Volvo for the East Coast, and we continued writing. Well, eventually he convinced me to come to Charlottesville. Well, by 1966, at Thanksgiving time, he said, do you have any plans for Christmas? I said, well, just to be with the family. So he said, let's get married, which we did. Christmas time, 1966, at the University of Virginia Chapel.
Oh.
And
Wow.
from there, we've had a very happy and fulfilling life.
Oh, wow.
That's it. In a nutshell.
And you're not finished either.
Oh, that's right. You still have more chapters to write. But that's a great story. Gosh, Jack, I'm glad you kept trying on those letters. That's great. So Lorraine, what got you interested in the arts?
Well, I really have always had an interest. I love to go to art galleries and just appreciated art. I just thought it was relaxing too. So I thought I would give it a try. As a matter of fact, from the lessons we've had and all, when I go to the National Gallery or someplace now, I really appreciate and enjoy looking at the paintings much more. I
Oh,
say, oh, that painter, the light was coming in from over his left shoulder or something, or here's a technique that I see a technique that Mel was teaching us in this particular painting.
oh,
It's
great.
just fun. And then when we go out for a walk, everything I see is, oh, that would make a nice painting. So I have enjoyed it on a very basic level.
Oh, I think you're being a little humble and basic because I love your work. As I recall, I think you were a charter member of the art classes when I started
Yes.
teaching. You came
Yeah.
down with Sonia, and then Jack started as soon as we started the photography. So I appreciate that you've been with us from the beginning.
Mhm.
So I was hoping we could look at some of your work and maybe you can share with everyone a little bit about each piece.
Okay. This one was when we started out with watercolor, and I really did enjoy that. I wouldn't mind going back to doing that, some of that. But anyway, this was the one I liked about the best. It's the only one that's got a frame.
Oh, okay. I like this one. I remember when you did this and the technique to get all those grasses and things. It was really,
Yes, and I love that brush with those thin little bristles on it to get the red in
oh, right
those, yeah,
up here. Oh, the fan brush. Yes.
fan brush.
Everyone's a
That was
fan of the fan
fun.
brush. That was, I feel like you got that autumnal glow or it could even be the pink of an early spring in the trees, but the snow and all, it's just beautiful colors.
Yeah,
It's nice. All right. Then we have this one.
that was just fun, I guess. I like to do things rather specifically, I guess. I like outlining things and dabbing things in.
In here with the seeds.
Yeah.
I always liked the outside inside of the avocado that it plays against itself like that.
Uh,
That's fun.
oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, back and front.
Another way of looking at it.
And then this one.
I thought this was a fun exercise that you had us do to take one object and then try to paint it in the style of another artist. And so we had been out at Cape and Springs in West Virginia, and I brought back some very nice gourds. So that was my object. You can see that clearly in the lower left hand. And that particular one, the lower left-hand one, is in the style of Roy Lichtenstein because it's got those dots around in the back of it.
Yep.
The one at the top is supposed to be in the style of Van Gogh because it has those swirls and things around in it.
Oh, yeah.
And then down on the right-hand side, that's in the style of Kandinsky. That was when Barry and I were having lots of fun with Kandinsky.
Oh, yeah. The
He's
can.
continued on like that, and I think he does. This is Barry I'm speaking
Oh,
of
right.
now. And he does very well like that. I did look up to see a lot of other paintings that Kandinsky did. There are a wide range of them.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is the style I like best.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he went from more realistic to a more outlined approach. And you said you do enjoy the harder edges, so this would make
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, and his bold shapes.
So anyway, that was fun. I liked that.
Oh, good. All righty.
I think this was the first thing I did with the acrylics.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just sort of a starter.
Okay.
But I love pansies, so that was why I chose that subject.
Oh, I like the complementary colors too with the yellow and purple. It's a very happy picture, I think.
Yeah, pansies are happy. I like this one because that's my kitty.
Oh,
But I also liked that was a time when we were using whatever that particular substance is that you gave us that raises the texture.
oh, the modeling paste on the canvas. Yeah.
Yes, so her fur shows there. And there were
Oh,
some other techniques you were trying to get through.
oh, well,
Anyway, I like that one.
one was the sgraffito where we scratched through to get the whiskers and things. That was another. But yeah, I like that too.
And scrubbing around a bit in places to give the fur a real look.
Oh, absolutely. It looks like fur. I get, and the intense gaze. That is true cat gaze for sure.
Yeah.
And this one of my favorites, because I like sheep.
Yeah, the sheep up there on the top of the hill for one.
That one. So what did you think of this one? This was acrylic too, I believe.
Yes, I think everything else is acrylic.
Okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed doing this one.
Mm. I love the grass. I feel like I'm in the Scottish Highlands or something. It's just lovely.
Yes.
And we have.
And from the Messiah, we like sheep.
Oh,
okay.
Have gone astray.
That's true. Then we have this one.
that is one of the other watercolors.
That's right.
And Bob Springer keeps talking to me about that. He still remembers it. He says, "You're going to do another painting like the row houses."
Oh.
So it's nice to be remembered.
Oh, absolutely. And I love this one. All the little details up here.
Yes. I could do my little details.
Oh, yeah. Then I think we have this one.
Those are Adirondack chairs, so that reminds me of the Adirondacks in New York State too. I'm very loyal to New York State.
Mm. That must be the upstate areas.
Oh yeah, that's up in the hump.
Oh, okay.
The upper north east.
Oh, to be there now. It looks so
yes,
beautiful.
Yeah, it'll be
Nice.
probably chilly. But
Yeah.
anyway, that was fun to do too. With
the long shadows. I love that lighting in there. All right. And then we have this one.
I like to do it. What was fun with this one was that on the dark area on the left, I wanted to put in some more texture in that, I guess. I don't know what I had on the brush, but it happened to be just a little bit of green, I guess, which was perfect. So I like the way that turned out. And everybody likes the trees.
Oh, yes. They're so delicate and just airy. Oh, yeah. And I like their reflections in the water, too.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Very serene. You definitely have developed a style, I think, in your work with a lot of the little details and things and the edges. So any final thoughts, Lorraine, on the Art Center experience that you'd like to share?
I would just like to say that I still enjoy the nice, peaceful atmosphere I experience in the art room, and just sitting there with the paints and mixing them a little bit and dabbing. And I'm enjoying meeting new ladies. So far, it's just been ladies on the new day that I'm coming on Wednesday. So that's very enjoyable.
Oh, I'm
Thank
glad. You're welcome. Thank you so much. So now we get to hear from Jack Hannon, a little bit about your life, Jack, and then we'll hear about your photography.
Very briefly, I've lived for 80 years and enjoyed almost all of it. I was born in Baltimore at Mercy Hospital, and it is not true. That's what the doctor exclaimed when I came out. Anyway, we moved to Brooklyn, New York when I was 6. It was a wonderful time in Brooklyn after the Second World War. Jackie Robinson had been signed and integrated the Major League Baseball world. The Dodgers were a very good team and played the Yankees in the World Series almost every year and won exactly one of those. I went to elementary school right around the corner from where we lived, and high school over in Manhattan, an all-scholarship Jesuit high school, the only one of its kind in the world. Between where we lived and where I went to school, we had one of the largest parks in the country, Prospect Park, right across the street from our apartment house in Brooklyn. And Central Park was 3 blocks away from Regis High School. And there was just so much color and life and attractions in New York that you're almost driven to go get a camera and start carrying it around. When I was 15, I worked for the summer, probably illegally at that young age, as a messenger for a Wall Street firm. And I'd wind up carrying things high up in some of those office buildings, and I took a lot of pictures of ships passing on the Hudson and East River from there. And at the end of my summer of $1 an hour, not including expenses, I was able to buy my first serious camera.
Yay, there it is.
Take care of it. This was a DIAX, D-I-A-X, from Germany, and it didn't have a meter or anything, so you had to set f-stops and speeds, and of course it was a film camera, so you never knew whether you'd set it at all correctly, and you learned a lot from it. Somewhere along the line too, I acquired this Ansco SpeedX, and this is one with the bellows to it.
Nice.
And with an f-stop setting. The widest aperture was 4.5, so obviously it was a dog in low light, but you learn to vary the film speed of the 2¼ inch, or I think it was 120 film used in that. The other great thing was that this high school had a camera club, which I joined.
Oh.
And it turned out that we had lots of great cameras. There were the 4.5 inch speed graphic cameras, like the newspaper photographers still use some of. And they had a reflex camera.
Oh, right.
And it had Omega enlargers in 2 dark rooms, no less.
Oh.
So I wound up on the yearbook staff as a photographer and on the newspaper staff, and we shot the usual stuff in the yearbook, and basketball games and baseball games and the senior retreat up the river from New York City, and learned a great deal. And I eventually figured out how to cover up all the light leaks in our kitchen at home. And so I had my own dark room.
Oh, there you go.
So those were great years.
Mm.
And beyond that, in college and then in the Navy, I always had a camera. And you'll see a couple of the shots from growing up in Brooklyn and from the Navy. And then on into our travels. The camera is a wonderful record of where you've been and what you did, and a wonderful record of family growth. So we have probably 10,000 pictures of our firstborn granddaughter, and maybe 1,000 pictures of the second.
It happens.
Someday there'll be time to edit all of that and make some sense of it. So in terms of my further studies, Marquette University, fine basketball school, good Jesuit education. They sent me on a German government grant, which Konrad Adenauer had left them in exchange for an honorary degree. They sent me off for my junior year in Germany as a regular German student. So ich musste ebenfalls immer Deutsch sprechen und verstehen. I had to always speak German and understand it and take oral exams from these professors because they don't run the same system as we do, and I had to get credit for the year. And then the US Navy, if my first set of orders had been capable of being realized, I would have wound up in Argentia, Newfoundland on the early warning radar line as the only intelligence officer on this base, 70 miles from St. John's, Newfoundland, where the base propaganda said that the main activity in our spare time was moose hunting. Well, I'd grown up in the middle of Brooklyn. What do I know about moose hunting?
True.
But the Navy decided to drill out every filling in my head and refill them. There must have been a new dentist reporting in.
Oh my gosh.
And I was left back 1 week, and that meant I wouldn't get to Norfolk in time for the intelligence school to go to Argentia, and instead I got a 2-month paid vacation, intelligence school in Alameda, California, and 7th Fleet cruises to go see the world and eventually meet Lorraine.
Oh, meant to be.
You know the rest of the story from Lorraine, so I think we're ready, Mel, for some pictures.
Sounds good. All right, here's the first image.
The park across the street, Prospect Park, was 550 acres, which is a big park. And it had the longest continuous open space of all the parks in the US, it is said. This was the second park landscape done by Frederick Law Olmsted. So in Brooklyn, we said he practiced on Central Park, Manhattan, and then he did it right in Brooklyn. This is a scene at the model boat building on a large lake on the other side of the park. And so the various model boats that would be sailed up and down on this lake were stored in this building. Was also the scene of the Abraham and Strauss department store fishing derby every spring, in which I caught absolutely nothing, but that's another story.
Well, I think
I blundered into observing a few of the standards of the photographer's art in this picture, and I'm glad of that. Shall we go on?
Yes.
Now, in New York City, it seemed like you were always going somewhere on a ferry, and indeed the B&O Railroad, which my dad worked for and provided free passage back to Baltimore, left from Hoboken. It didn't go under the tunnel into New York City, so we would ride these ferries to get to the train to get to Baltimore. And lo and behold, this one time here came in an enormous ocean liner. It turned out to be the Cunard Line's Mauritania.
Wow.
And that is what they call the relief ship for the Queen Mary and the Queen Elizabeth, who were the most famous ships on the seas in that era. That meant that the Mauritania had to be right up to snuff with the level of first class accommodations and so on that the Queens had. So it was quite an imposing vessel. And my pride and the joy with this picture, as Mel knows, is when we cut to the ship, the Statue of Liberty fell out of the picture. So with Photoshop, we moved the Statue of Liberty back into the picture.
And no one
How's
knows the
that?
difference.
That work. You never quite know whether you're looking at a photo that the photographer actually took or that they assembled. This is one of the latter. Next one, please.
Okay.
So there is the Mauritania heading on down on upriver to its dock. But I really like this picture because you've got a lot of gulls in it. You've got a tugboat on the port side letting off a bunch of steam and other river craft on the right. This is the letter that the guy landed the plane on full of people and got them all out some years later.
Oh, okay.
We had to work on this picture because there was an awful lot of smoke on the right side, and Mel taught me to brush a bunch of it out.
Oh, I remember.
Okay.
Okay. We have this one.
Now I am in my junior year in Munich, and one thing the student union had in all German universities is keep student trips to other places. So I am here in Paris, probably in an 8th floor. I was sharing it with 2 other guys, but out walking one day down one of the major boulevards, here came these zany guys coming by, and all of a sudden they were jumping in the fountain. And I thought, if this is what Paris is like, I'm all for it. So
Of course.
this day, I remember that day very fondly.
Aw, I bet. All right.
Go on.
Yeah.
Now I'm in the US Navy. I'm an intelligence officer on an attack carrier. It is the first day of sustained offensive operations against North Vietnam. And this is a picture of our pilots and their aircraft as they're about to fly off into harm's way. Note the pilot in the left foreground who is totally airborne, running to
Yeah.
it. They're in green flight suits for the first time I ever saw them. They're usually in orange, which means rescue when you can see the pilot more readily. And this was used in a story in the University of Virginia Lawyer 2 years ago when our class had the 50th reunion. And we had a seminar in which the 7 or 8 fellows who had some involvement with Vietnam gave their reminiscences. And they were kind enough to use one of my photos as the lead picture.
Wow.
It turned out that one of us, Bob Wright, went on to become the president of NBC television. So some of the boys did well.
Yes.
And we go on.
Okay. Ah.
Now we're taking a trip on the Seine River from Honfleur at the sea to Paris, which I think more than a few Vincent Hall people have also done. We're here in Honfleur on a Saturday, and these 2 ladies are exchanging the customary French greeting while there's this profundity of color in the vegetable market next to them. I wonder, Mel, if anybody's still exchanging those greetings with COVID-19.
I hope not. Yeah, it's true. Definitely now it's a bygone era for the time being. Oh, love this one.
This is probably my best picture. One night on this cruise, they told us that up at the cathedral in Rouen, Rouen, they
Mhm.
were having a light show about the city and its origins at 10 o'clock. Rouen is famous for several things. Joan of Arc lived and died here. And Monet took a flat in an apartment building opposite this scene because she liked the play of color on the front of the cathedral. And he painted something like 27 different canvases in varying light conditions
Mm.
over an extended period of time. But they, for this light show, were simply using the front of the cathedral as the screen. And I happened to just snap this one. You can see a bride on the left
Mm. Oh,
and
yes.
a lot of splashes of color. The Joan of Arc scene, it looked like blood coursing down the front of the cathedral. And the shadows that you see was the small crowd standing or sitting as they could in front.
Mm.
They also had massive speakers and wonderful sound to go with this.
Mm.
It was a very special night for us. And I think, Mel, this won a regional prize
Yes,
in a
it did.
competition that's no longer given, I gather.
Unfortunately, they don't run the leading age competition anymore, but yes, it was. It was the entire region, which encompassed Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, District of Columbia. So absolutely, this was a top-notch photo winning piece. I love this one. Oh,
And further down the river, we spent a Saturday morning at Monet's country place in Giverny, and you all know about his water gardens and the flowers in it. And I caught the light just right on this one while being elbowed by an enormous crowd that was there on Saturday morning.
oh.
And in the dark room, I wanted to just show the flower, but Ron, one of our other illustrious photographers, and you convinced me that we ought to have something of the surroundings, and this came out pretty well.
Mm. Oh, it's beautiful. Looks like a Monet painting to me. It's just gorgeous.
The most of the remaining pictures are from our one photo safari in Tanzania. It
Mm.
took Lorraine 10 years to convince me to go to Africa because while in naval reserves, one of our guys had gone to Africa on government service for a month, and he came back with things swimming in his bloodstream that were very hard to get rid of.
Oh.
But eventually we went, and believe me, ladies and gentlemen, this was for us the trip of a lifetime. I'm sure it would be for you as well if you still have the capacity. The first day in a game park when we saw a giraffe eating off the top of an acacia tree,
Wow.
it was a true revelation. This picture is of a baobab tree. Um, we were in 3 Toyota Forerunners, or what's the name of the runners that Toyota puts out? 5 of us and a guide, and there were 3 of the vehicles, so there were 15 of us on this trip.
Mm.
We got into some very remote places. These are my 3 lions, And Mike Clough was kind enough to frame this with me,
Hmm.
for me rather. Um, they were looking across a football field's length at a very mangy male lion who had the wounds of many a battle out on the plains. We named him Trouble,
Hmm.
and so I named this picture Watching for Trouble.
Oh.
They paid him, though, almost no regard, and off he went. But
Oh.
those are my three lions. We are here with three lionesses and maybe 7 or 8 tiny cubs,
Oh, they're
only
so
a
little.
handful of which I managed to get in this picture.
Hmm.
It is said that the female lions all take part in raising the young. And we saw some of that going on here in the rocks. They paid no attention to us, and our driver didn't call in the other two vehicles for a half an hour, and no other outfitter had anybody here. So we had this show all to ourselves
Oh,
for all that time. It's really
wow.
quite remarkable.
Hmm.
But that was
And
telephoto.
Oh, good thing. You never know. They look peaceful now. So now I think we're going to get a chance to see some of the talent in the extended Hannon family.
so this is a picture from last fall's art show. Anna Klemenko is our oldest of two granddaughters, and she's a capable artist. And she's done this collage of one of her favorite singers.
This is beautiful. I think this was at the last community art show that we had, I believe.
Yes.
I love that piece. And I've loved watching Anna's art grow through the years too. She's an extremely talented young woman. Then we have another.
And this is our son-in-law, Victor Klemenko, the physicist. And he has painted a big surprise. It's a picture of me reading where I didn't even know the picture is taken, much less the art produced. And that was the grand prize winner in the community art show. And we have another picture that'll show you
There it is. Yep.
his talent.
Mm. It looks so much like a Rembrandt to me. It's just gorgeous. Amazing.
I hope I was reading a serious book to go with the serious painting.
I think you look very,
Just,
very relaxed but intense at the same time. I like this. Just as a side
yeah,
note, what I remember is at that art show, when the slide of this came up, you happened to walk across in front where some of your friends were standing and they all cheered for you. I remember that. You were in front of your own piece. That was fun. And then I think we have one that you have a special story about.
well, and I said at the start that photography helps you to remember special family events. This is special. This is also Anna Klemenko at a younger age, perhaps 3. It was a Sunday afternoon, and she came in and said she wanted to make a dress. And
Wow.
Lorraine and her sister Lois sort of assessed the possibilities and decided to leave her with me and go out. So I was abandoned with no skills whatever at dressmaker, and here was this dear young girl that wanted to make a dress. Well, we found some colored wrapping paper, I suppose, and stretched that around her and made a skirt. And then I used every single set of ribbon like you'd put on top of a package that you wrap.
Mm.
And I was delighted she was looking in a full-length mirror, which you can't quite see but the edges of here.
Aw.
And she said, Grandpa, I want puffs.
Oh.
What are puffs, Anna? And she explained it. And I thought, well, we could try some balloons. And so we blew up some balloons and somehow got them to stick to the skirt. So there she was, complete with her dress with puffs, admiring herself in the mirror. And she said, and my heart almost stopped, now everybody's going to want to dance with me.
Oh. Wow, Jack and Lorraine, that trip down memory lane with your granddaughter at the very end was just heart touching. I hope she always remembers that. Any last thoughts either of you would like to share about your experiences with art, photography, or just anything?
What I wanted to say is, Mel, you have enriched our experience and broadened it in so many ways.
Thank you.
Probably Lorraine never would have started painting had you not come on this scene, and it's given her joy and
Oh.
satisfaction. And she is hung in the best places, our apartment. And I never would have learned how to move the Statue of Liberty
Well, there you
or
go.
get some other unwanted features out of some of my photography. So we are extremely grateful to you and very supportive of your program.
Well,
Thank
it
you
wouldn't, you're
very
quite
much.
welcome. Gosh, thank you so much. But honestly, the program wouldn't even exist without your patronage and the other folks in the center. So I like the collaborative effort we all put in as artists, and it's my pleasure, truly. Well, thank you again for agreeing to be this week's featured artists. I'm so grateful, and I'm sure the Vincent Hall community will really enjoy this presentation. Thank you so much, Jack and Lorraine, for agreeing to be this week's featured artists. I appreciate how much loyalty you've given the art community at Vincent Hall and that you've been participating in the Art Center since we opened in 2015. I'm sure everyone will appreciate a second chance to see that beautiful work in the slideshow that follows. Thank you again, Vincent Hall, for tuning in, and stay tuned for next week when we'll have another episode of our featured artist series. Till then, stay safe and be well.